So, good afternoon. Today we are here to present to you the study that we have conducted entitled Relationship between the GWA or the General Weighted Average and Weekly Allowances of MMW18 of CEU Manila. The MMW18 is the class or the section that Dr. Roda Aguilar is handling, and the respondents are the whole class of MMW18. So, for more details about our study, let us first hear our introduction to be given by Ms. Janine.
So, the introduction of the study. Significant in determining the relationship of the students' general weighted average or GWA to their weekly allowance. The researcher uses two variables, which are the weekly allowance of the students and their general weighted average. Since the students often label their general weighted average as high achieving, average, and low achieving, the researcher wants to discover other things that can affect the academic performance of the students, specifically their weekly allowance. So next is the statement of the problem. How may the academic performance of the respondents be described? How may the weekly allowance of the respondents be described? And what is the relationship of the academic performance and weekly allowance of the respondents? So the researcher wants to discover if there is a positive relationship between the academic performance or the GWA of the students and their weekly allowance.
Since we are asked to give both the descriptive and the inferential statistics, we decided to include the descriptive statistics in our first two statement of the problems. The first one is again how may the academic performance of the respondents be described, and the second one is how may the weekly allowance of the respondents be described. And our inferential statistics is what is the relationship of the academic performance and weekly allowance of the respondents, meaning we are looking for the correlation.
So let us now proceed to the review of related literature.
Literature. First is De Guzman, M.R., Frojas G., Inamak J., 2017. Students of fine arts are expected to spend a lot of money with their materials. So, recognizing this, the study aims to know how fine arts students budget their allowance, and this research is all about allowance and budget of second-year students of University of Santo Tomas College of Fine Arts and Design. According to Ocampo 2015, the major concern of this is the financial status of the family in lower class. Family in lower class should be given a financial assistance because of not enough budget to buy materials and lack of teachers' expertise. Number 3, according to Grass-Green 2012, the financial findings speak to the need for the colleges to make sure students have the aid of counseling and information. This is all about the finances affecting the students' academic performances.
Next, according to Sander 2012. So, according to Sander, he said that the financial worries may affect the students' performance when it comes to their interaction with the peers, family, and friends. So that he therefore concluded that we must collect the data in order for us to figure out the mean and also have the response to the said students.
Okay, according to Dong and Fosnach 2013, where he emphasizes that financial sustainability gives a beneficial effect to the academic field of a student and results to a better participation in the learning environment. According to his study, that financial stress among college students include unforeseen emergencies and expenses, as a student generally have few savings, they do not have extra money to pay for unexpected expenses. Daily allowance has an impact when it comes to continual learning. For an instance, students who did not worry about paying for college and having enough money for their regular expenses focuses more on their studies. This research tackles financial stresses and its impact on first-year students' college experience. Next, according to the study of African Research Review year 2017, according to their findings, that a student whose amount is inadequate will have to devise other ways to have more money. And this will affect his lectures because he or she has to go out during lectures. Transport fare to lecture venues may not be available for the student to attend lectures regularly. Even when the student is present, apart from lack of concentration, which could result from a psychological problem or poor feeding, the student may not have enough money to cater for most of the financial needs like the cost of typing needs of some assignments and browsing on the internet. This study is all about the impact of students' financial strength on their academic performance. And according to the study of Lane Conrad, School of Economics, year 2007, that financial aid is used to price discriminate and how academic performance is produced using two core inputs, ability and effort. And it can begin to examine the interaction of financial aid and academic performance have on each other.
Next, according to the study conducted by the ABS-CBN 2013, according to Dr. Lito 2013, he denotes that maximizing daily allowance could create small changes in your daily routine so that the students want a financial support from the government in order for them to achieve a great performance when it comes to their studies. And time management and planning is the important role to disseminate this said issue.
Okay, according to the study conducted by City of Malabon University Graduate Studies, year 2009, that according to their findings, that the students who were not be able to comply with their outputs in portfolios and projects were subjected to undergo remediation, which is one of the existing school programs, due to the small amount or the income of their family. Thus, it affects their behavior shown in their span of relation to their attention and punctuality.
And last, according to the study conducted by NESI 2012, she said that when we have a proper academic materials, it can affect the students' performance as well. And she worried about the not enough money for them to sustain to their everyday needs, so that it affects their academic performance. Therefore, she concluded that the proper budgeting of the allowances is needed in order for us to achieve a good state of the study.
Now let's move on to our methodology. We use descriptive correlational research design because we wanted to know the relationship between the students of MMW18 weekly allowance to their grade 12 GWA. We used the student data that was conducted by Dr. Rhoda Aguilar and excluded those students who passed their data incomplete. We used frequency distribution to describe the GWA and the respondents' weekly allowance, and Pearson correlation coefficient to determine the relationship of the students' weekly allowance and their GWA.
So now let's move on to the results and discussion. The lowest grade that our respondent got is 78, and the highest grade is 96.5. But we decided to range our grades or the GWA of our respondents starting from 75 to 80, 81 to 85, 86 to 90, 91 to 95, and 96 to 100. 2 out of 25 respondents, or 8% of our respondents, got a grade that falls between 75 to 80. And 4 out of 25, or 16% of our respondents, got a grade that falls between 81 to 85. While 9, or the majority of the respondents, 36% out of 100%, got a grade that falls from 86 to 90. And 7, or 28% of the respondents, got 91 to 95. And 3, or 12% of our respondents got a grade that falls between 96 to 100. Now let's move on to the weekly allowance. Again, our statement to the problem number 2 is, how may the weekly allowance be described? We describe the weekly allowance by getting its frequency and percentage, which is also the same thing was also done with the GWA. We describe the GWA by getting the frequency and the percentage. So going back, the weekly allowance of our respondents ranges from 500 to 3,000 pesos. So from 500 to 1,000 pesos, there are 11 respondents, or 44% of our respondents have a weekly allowance that falls between these amounts. So the majority of our respondents answered that their weekly allowance fall between 500 to 1,000 pesos. 8 out of 25, or 32% of our respondents, said that that their allowance falls between 1,001 pesos to 1,500. While 16%, or 4 out of 25 respondents, said that their weekly allowance falls from 1,501 to 2,000. And 1, or 4% of our respondents said that his allowance falls from 2,001 to 2,500. And the same thing also goes with 2,501 to 3,000. All in all, the respondents are 25, so the total is 25, and the total percentage, of course, is 100%. Now, let's move on to our third statement of the problem. Going back, it is said that is there a significant relationship between the weekly allowance and the GWA of our respondents? So, our table 3 shows the correlation between the weekly allowance and the GWA, and the correlation is negative 0.011006993. And using this one as our R, we were able to come up with the p-value of 0.9584, and which means that there is no significant relationship, since 0.9584 is greater than 0.05. That's why there is no significant relationship. And with that, the following are our conclusions. The ideas and results in the study pointed the following conclusions. Number 1, majority of the respondents of the study got a GWA that falls from 86 to 90. 8% was from 75 to 80. 16% was from 81 to 85. 28% was from 91 to 95. And 12% was from 96 to 100. And that supports our number 1 statement of the problem. How may the GWA of our respondents be described? Number 2, majority of the respondents of the study receive an allowance that falls from 500 pesos to 1,000 pesos. 32% of the respondents receive 1,001 pesos and 1,500 pesos. 16% receives 1,501 pesos to 2,000 pesos, and 8% of the respondents receive 2,001 pesos to 3,000 pesos. And that also supports our second statement of the problem, which is the how may the weekly allowance be described. And lastly, of course, what is the is there a significant relationship between the GWA and the weekly allowance? The answer is there is no significant relationship between the GWA and weekly allowances of the respondents. And with that, that ends our presentation of our study. Thank you.